Mr. Darcy and Lizzy celebrate Christmas at Pemberley in Mr. Darcy's Christmas Wish, a Pride and Prejudice variation, by Lysa Shimkus. Chapter 5. Ouch! So sorry, miss. The seamstress needle pinched Liz's side, as the former made finishing touches to the latter's gown. When Mamma learned of Liz's invitation from the Darcys, she marched her daughters to Meryton, to have a new gown made for Lizzy with haste. Although the fabrics Mamma would have preferred would need to be shipped from London, she made do with those available. Liz's new gown was rather plain, but she adored the blue-green muslin, which glistened in the light and resembled an evergreen tree. "Oh, how I envy you, dear Lizzy," Lydia whined. "Mamma, when shall I have a new gown?" "When you receive a marriage proposal," was their mother's reply. Lizzy fisted her hands and looked heavenward. She was not getting engaged nor married, she was attending a dinner hosted by a lady friend. Ever since Jane's engagement to Mr. Bingley, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet were ready to thrust the rest of the sisters at any man who came to the door. Though they could not afford a season for the older three, the parents had hoped that a neighbouring boy would whisk each daughter away with ease. Jane's beauty and character gained her the attention and affection of Mr. Bingley. Mary's intelligent mind had yet to catch the eye of a scholar, and Lizzy deemed herself forever aunt to all her sisters' children. Her new gown was only an excuse for their mother to brag to the neighbours, but it would never catch the eye of a potential suitor. In truth, the Bennets had money but not enough to ensure each daughter had a dowry. And with no male heir, whatever money Mr. Bennet has would pass on to the next male in line, which was a cousin by the name of Mr. Collins. Knowing they only had their looks and talents to secure a husband, each daughter learned to sew and mend, cook and clean, be knowledgeable in herbal remedies, and a collection of other skills that would prove useful as a wife and mother. When the Bennet women exited the seamstress, with Liz's new gown in hand, Mamma agreed to let the younger girls do some shopping. This left the older two to wander the high street. "I cannot believe you will be attending a Christmas Eve dinner at Pemberley," Jane remarked with a smile. "And I cannot believe you will be Mrs. Bingley in the spring," Lizzy retaliated. Both sisters laughed and hooked arms. "What do you suppose marriage is like?" the eldest inquired. "Well, seeing that Mamma and Papa are our only examples, marriage is two individuals who get on the other's nerves until they go to bed and rise and repeat." Lizzy smirked at her sister. "Do not tease me, Lizzy," Jane retorted, "for you know I am serious. I am honestly frightened of marriage." "Whatever for?" "I don't know how to run a household, my cooking is not what it should be, I don't know how to tend to babies, and what about keeping my husband happy? I fear I shall fail in all areas." Lizzy had to stop her sister from walking any further and faced her. "My dearest Jane, you are the most intelligent woman I know. You run Mamma and Papa's books better than they do, you have helped care for our young cousins, and you already make Mr. Bingley so happy he wants to marry you and be with you for the rest of your lives. Do not doubt yourself, for I shall doubt myself as well." Jane blushed. "You may be right. However, why should you doubt yourself? I have never known you to have fears." Lizzy began walking once more. "I have many fears, dear sister. I just choose not to let them show, so as to not bother you, Mamma and Papa, and our sisters. I would much rather keep my troubles to myself." "Lizzy, you know that is not good. I've got Charlotte Lucas to confide in, as well. She has never told a single soul about my deepest, darkest fears and thoughts." Again, Jane smiled. "I will miss you dearly when Charles and I wed. I will be sure to visit Netherfield Park often and play the piano so poorly you will have to send me away." "And what if Mr. Darcy visits as well?" Lizzy had to think. Recalling the last couple times she had been in the company of Mr. Darcy, neither plagued the other. Both had been civil and even friendly. "You have my word, Jane, I will do my best to see the goodness in Mr. Darcy, and to not let my pride get in the way. As a matter of fact, he was kind and gentle when last we spoke. I believe this dinner, that I will be attending, is his way of extending an olive branch, and I have accepted." Jane patted Liz's arm. "Thank you." Chapter 6. Fitzwilliam Darcy redid his cravat for the umpteenth time. He wished to look presentable for tonight's Christmas Eve dinner. Although Miss Elizabeth was Georgiana's guest, Darcy felt it was his responsibility to ensure she had an enjoyable time at Pemberley. Then he paced around in his room until a footman announced Miss Elizabeth's arrival. She was 10 minutes early. Darcy preferred an early riser to a late one, earning their guest another token of admiration from him. When he approached the drawing room, Darcy could hear the voices of his sister and their guest. "You have done such a marvelous job with the Christmas decorations, Miss Darcy," said Miss Elizabeth. "Thank you. Although, you must call me Georgiana." "Then I insist that you call me Lizzy, for that is what my family and friends call me." "Lizzy." Darcy tried the name on his tongue and rather liked it. It was personal and endearing. The two young women discussed many different topics in the time that Darcy stood behind the door. He was astonished to hear how well his sister and Miss Elizabeth conversed. Most surprising was how open Georgiana was. Darcy had never heard his sister speak so freely to a non-family member before. His heart warmed. Darcy's sister finally found a friend whom she could trust. If Georgiana trusted Miss Elizabeth, then so would he. "What is it like to have so many sisters?" Georgiana asked. "No 2 days are the same, I assure you." Miss Elizabeth let out a small laugh, and Darcy felt his heart skip a beat. Her laughter was delightful. Darcy was all amazement by how much he was beginning to learn and like about Miss Elizabeth. Perhaps if he had been less judgmental of her, in the 2 years since they met, they would have a better relationship at present. And Mr. Darcy? Darcy froze at the mention of his name. What is it like to be his sister? Darcy's ears burned. His sister may confide, to another being, how she truly felt about him as a brother. The subject did not feel ready to hear the response. He should not be listening, without their knowledge, yet curiosity kept Darcy in place. "My brother is a wonderful man," spoke Georgiana. "He is kind and caring, and he places everyone above himself. He is too humble at times, but our staff, friends, and neighbors have only good things to say about him. I am lucky to have such a lovely brother like Fitzwilliam. Some days I feel I do not deserve his love, for I am not as good. There are days, Miss Elizabeth, Lizzy, when—" "Yes?" There was silence before Georgiana spoke again. "When I wonder if I will ever be able to live up to my brother." Miss Elizabeth laughed gently. "Oh, Georgiana, you cannot compare yourself to your brother, for you are you. You were placed on this earth to be a unique individual whose talents are to do good for this world, on her own. I suppose you are right. However, I do admire my brother. He is amiable and social, whereas I am shy and quiet. I fear I shall be alone when my brother marries." The other side of the door went quiet for some time, before Miss Elizabeth spoke. "I do not doubt your fear, Georgiana, for I too have that worry. As you know, my sister Jane is marrying Charles Bingley in the spring. My sister has been my constant companion for as long as I can remember. Although I am happy for her, and shall miss her daily, I fear I have been left behind. Even my younger sisters, who have more talents than myself, may find suitors first, and I shall be a spinster forever." "You are too pretty to be a spinster," Georgiana teased. "Looks do not attract nor keep a husband. It's the heart that does, and perhaps my heart is not as good as I think it to be. I even disliked your brother until recently." Miss Elizabeth let out a small laugh once more. Darcy wondered if their guest laughed when uncomfortable, so as to ease her troubles. "Did you always dislike my brother?" "Well, no. I actually thought he was very handsome when first I laid eyes on him, at the Meryton ball. I had hoped he would ask me to dance, but he didn't." "And he?" "He what? Do tell me." "My brother can be quite secretive, I believe because he thinks I'm still a child who does not need to know things. But I am 16 now. I deserve to be treated as an equal." "You are right." "Well, at the Meryton ball your brother criticized my appearance. I was very hurt by his comment, and I considered him to be the most insufferable man in the world, and I would never dance with him." Once again, Miss Elizabeth laughed. "However, I have danced with your brother since, and he is a wonderful dancer. He is also a splendid walking companion. Lizzy, I'm sorry my brother spoke so poorly of you. I'm sure he was nervous and didn't want to make a fool of himself, and he said things he regrets. Now you are friends. It was Fitzwilliam who suggested I invite you here tonight. Yes, I know. So you have forgiven my brother. I believe I forgave him a long time ago. I was just too stubborn to believe it. The young ladies giggled to themselves, and Darcy chose this opportunity to interrupt them. Pardon my absence, he spoke upon opening the door. I hope I did not keep you both waiting too long. Georgiana and Miss Elizabeth were sitting closely on the sofa, their hands together, as if they'd been friends for many years. Darcy admired Miss Elizabeth even more, for Georgiana had been in need of someone to confide in, and she found it in this dear friend of theirs. Not at all, Mr. Darcy. Miss Elizabeth rose, as did Georgiana. Darcy gave each woman his arm, and both graciously accepted. Lizzy could not believe her eyes, for they dined upon roast beef, fish, mussels, mince pies, Christmas pudding, and an array of other foods. It was enough to feed the village. Leftovers would be given to the staff and charity. While enjoying the food, Lizzy overheard Georgiana and Mr. Darcy speak of a Christmas wish, to which she asked, "What is a Christmas wish?" "Every year, while we make Christmas pudding, my brother and I make a wish," the young hostess explained. "Last Christmas, I wished for a new mirror come the new year." "And did your wish come true?" "Yes. Fitzwilliam bought me a young mirror, for my favourite is growing weak, but I still adore her." "And what did you wish for this Christmas?" Georgiana looked over at her brother. "For my brother to be home more often. I know he enjoys London and work, but I do miss him when he goes on his work trips. Perhaps I shall take you with me, on my work trips, more often?" Mr. Darcy asked. "No, brother, for you know long travels do not do well with me. Just promise you will visit home more often." "I will." "And what is your wish, brother?" "I cannot tell you. It is a secret." It was then that Lizzy wished her family was also at the table. As she watched brother and sister interact, the same twinkle in their eyes and smiles upon their faces, Lizzy's heart ached. Was this what Christmas would look like for the rest of her life? Once Jane married, she would be hosting her own parties. Even Mary, Lydia, and Kitty would marry and be their own hostesses. Lizzy would be all to herself for the holiday. Her heart grew heavy, and Lizzy felt tears gather in her eyes, but she did not let it show. When they had eaten to their heart's content, Georgiana eagerly played the piano. She showcased pieces by Beethoven and Mozart, which she was proud to have mastered, and her audience applauded with great pleasure. Then Mr. and Miss Darcy showed their guest around Pemberley, remarking on each piece of family history. Brother and sister spoke in turn, as if they had given tours many times over. Their companionship only made Lizzy feel more alone. Upon noticing Lizzy's demeanour, Mr. Darcy turned to inquire what was the matter. "I believe I am in need of fresh air." In truth, Lizzy did not know what she wanted at that moment. She was too distraught to think properly. "Of course. Perhaps we can ride? Let me show you the stable." Georgiana had to decline the activity. "I'm afraid I've had my fair share of riding for today," the young lady spoke. "However, I shall wait here for you both. Perhaps I'll have coffee waiting when you return." "Yes. Thank you, Georgiana." Mr. Darcy offered Lizzy his arm, which she took, and together they grabbed their coats and approached the outdoors. The sun had already begun to set, and a slight breeze brushed their faces. Even their breaths caught in the air. This change in scenery was welcomed by Lizzy. When they came upon the stable, Mr. Darcy had his stallion brought to him, and a mare for Lizzy. Lizzy had ridden their family's horses many times and did not hesitate to help saddle this gentle animal. "What is her name?" Lizzy inquired of the horse. "Lady. I gifted her to Georgiana Dash. Her Christmas wish." "Indeed." Lizzy brushed the horse's mane. She liked the name Lady. It was very fitting. Horse and human were soon strolling the estate, with Lizzy curious about the woods. She wondered if Pemberley had wolves deep within its trees, to which Mr. Darcy said yes. Lizzy brushed the horse's mane. She liked the name Lady. It was very fitting. Horse and human were soon strolling the estate, with Lizzy curious about the woods. She wondered if Pemberley had wolves deep within its trees, to which Mr. Darcy said yes. He assured her that the wolves have yet to make themselves visible to him and the staff, so there was nothing to fear. Lizzy took this time to admire Pemberley from the outside. Its structure was tall and strong, built to withstand weather and protect its family. And its grounds were vast and fertile, with crops and livestock to ensure the livelihood of its consumers. An estate such as this served many great purposes, and even that was worth envying. Lizzy's insecurities were soon upon her again, and she considered herself a fool for wanting what she could never have. Her worries were soon put at ease as Mr. Darcy commented on her riding. "You are a good rider, Miss Elizabeth." "Thank you. Although I much prefer walking when I can. I do like the connection one has with a horse. Lady is very tranquil and trusting. I am glad she has allowed me to ride her tonight. It seems Lady and Georgiana are both fond of you." "I hope so." There came a natural silence, as Lizzy admired Pemberley. She wondered what it must be like to call such a place home. Longbourn could never compare to the likes of the Darcys' estate. With her thoughts in a faraway place, Lizzy did not catch sight of the little critter that jumped out in front of Lady. The horse squealed and immediately jumped back onto its hind legs. Lizzy gasped as she lost grip of the reins. She felt herself go weightless, and then the world grew dark around her. Chapter 7th. Lizzy roused to the sound of voices. She recognized Mr. Darcy's frantic one over the sound of shuffling feet, but she was too tired to comprehend what was occurring around her. The world was spinning and all Lizzy wanted to do was sleep, so she did. When she awoke once more, Lizzy found herself staring at a bright, round object. It was the moon, peeking through the curtains of the window. She had awoken to a warmly lit room, with a blazing fire in the hearth on one side of the bed. The bed, itself, was not her own. However, the mattress was soft, the pillows cushiony, and the many blankets were very warm and comfortable. Lizzy stared up at the ceiling and could not comprehend where she was. The side of her head throbbed, making Lizzy groan. Upon touching the sore area, she found cloth wrapped around her head. Her head had been bandaged. What happened? Try as she could to recall what may have occurred prior to this moment, Lizzy could only remember trying on her gown in Meryton, with Jane, Mamma, and her younger sisters. Where were they now? Lizzy tried to sit up, so as to crawl out of the bed, and noticed a figure next to her. A settee sat parallel to the bed, with a body lain in it. He was very tall and muscular for the furniture and had to curl up in it. He was also dressed in a white shirt, his golden waistcoat undone, his dark trousers dishevelled, and his boots lay on the floor. The figure was that of Mr. Darcy. His eyes were closed, and the rest of his face and body were relaxed. His breathing was also deep and heavy. Mr. Darcy was sleeping right next to her. Lizzy could not understand what the man was doing here, nor why they were the only occupants in the room. Just then, the door creaked open, and a young girl walked in. She curtsied before whispering, "Hello, miss, I thought I heard movement." Lizzy nodded, and the girl, whom she took to be a maid, continued, "I shall fetch the doctor." Wait. Lizzy was in need of answers to her situation. "Where am I? And what day is it?" "You are at Pemberley, miss. And it may as well be early Christmas Day." Pemberley? Lizzy could not recall arriving at Pemberley. "And Christmas Day as well?" "You may not remember, but you fell off a horse and hit your head," the young maid continued. Lizzy now understood the bandages on her head. "I shall have the master explain, while I fetch the doctor," the maid continued. "He shan't be happy if he hears that we have been speaking while he slumbers." The young girl crossed over to Darcy's feet and cleared her throat loudly. This awoke the sleeping figure on the settee. The maid need not say a word, for as soon as Mr. Darcy's eyes opened, he met Lizzy's. "Miss Elizabeth, you're awake." He jolted upright and closed the distance between them, sitting himself upon the bed. The young maid hurriedly left the room, leaving Lizzy with Mr. Darcy once more. Mr. Darcy clasped his strong, calloused hands on Lizzy's jaw and looked her over. "How are you feeling? Are you all right?" "My head is sore, but I am well enough." In truth, Lizzy was in too much shock to notice the pain. She still could not understand why she was at Pemberley on Christmas Day. "I'm glad." Mr. Darcy released his hold of Lizzy and rubbed his face. It was at that moment that Lizzy noticed how tired he looked. Had Mr. Darcy been up tending to her wound? "Excuse my asking, but how did I get here, Mr. Darcy?" Lizzy inquired. "Do not you remember?" Lizzy shook her head. "I remember shopping in Meryton with Jane. It must have been the 22nd of December." Mr. Darcy's expression fell. "I'm afraid it's Christmas Day." "Yes, the maid told me." They were silent for some time before Mr. Darcy confessed, "Elizabeth, I am so sorry." Lizzy was stunned. He had called her by her Christian name. "Going riding was my idea, and I should not have suggested it," Mr. Darcy continued. His eyes did not meet hers. Instead, they were on her hands, which were draped on her lap. Lizzy fought the urge to clasp Mr. Darcy's hands in hers, to assure him she was alive and well. Darcy did not, no, could not, believe Miss Elizabeth. Not after he saw her fly off the horse and land on the ground, unconscious. The doctor assured him that the moss and leaves had cushioned her fall, but Darcy still could not shake the memory of Miss Elizabeth's lifeless body. He was afraid she had died. What then would he tell Mr. and Mrs. Bennet? How could he ever face Bingley again, when his fiancée had lost a sister under Darcy's care? The room seemed to cloak Darcy in deep coldness, until a warm hand touched his. It was Miss Elizabeth's. Darcy clasped her hand and brought it to his lips without much thought. "Elizabeth," he murmured, peering into her beautiful dark eyes, "I thought I lost you." "You cannot lose what you do not have," Miss Elizabeth teased him. Darcy felt his face grow warm. How silly of him. Miss Elizabeth was not his. At least not yet. Feeling Miss Elizabeth would not reject him, for why would she have spoken those words, Darcy straightened. "Of course. Miss Elizabeth Bennet, it would be a great pleasure if you allow me to court you." Miss Elizabeth's eyes watered, as she smiled and replied, "I would be honoured, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy." Darcy's chest filled with pride and admiration, knowing Miss Elizabeth was now his. Yet the knowledge did not remove his fear of almost losing her. And there was her memory loss of the past 2 days as well. She could not remember the Christmas Eve dinner with Georgiana and himself. Thinking back to the night before, Darcy recalled Miss Elizabeth's solemn face at dinner and the tour around the house. He assumed it was due to the lack of entertainment and that perhaps Miss Elizabeth had been bored of their company, hence he suggested riding. She had confided, earlier in the month, that she enjoyed riding. The memory of the aftermath gripped Darcy strongly, and he did not want to trust Miss Elizabeth with another stable horse again. Suddenly, a thought struck Darcy. If Miss Elizabeth could not remember Christmas Eve, perhaps they could enjoy Christmas together. He and Georgiana could invite the Bennets and friends and family to join them as well, for Miss Elizabeth's sake. When Darcy voiced this idea, his guest beamed. "That would be most enjoyable, Mr. Darcy," said she. Darcy, however, scowled. "I cannot have you calling me Mr. Darcy. You must address me as Fitzwilliam or whatever name you feel suits me." "William. That could grow on me." "Then you should call me Lizzy." Elizabeth's eyes grew round. "How did you know?" "I may have been listening to you and Georgiana last night, an event you do not recall." Miss Elizabeth's eyes fell. "I wish I could remember what happened." Darcy squeezed her hand. "I believe it's all for the best that you do not, and you can make new memories later today, my Lizzy." She smiled and yawned. "I believe I must interrupt our time with some sleep, if you do not mind. I will wake you once the doctor arrives." Having assisted Miss Elizabeth to lay back down, Darcy sat himself on the settee. He could not believe all the events that had occurred in the past several hours. What should have been a fun-filled evening turned into a nightmare. Darcy could not forgive himself. However, he was grateful that Miss Elizabeth could now gain consciousness, and she was his. The most he could do was be grateful. Chapter 8. Lizzy stepped down the elegant stairway on the arm of Jane. Her sister arrived bright and early to tend to her, and the rest of the family arrived shortly after. As the sisters approached the dining hall, Lizzy thought her heart would burst with joy at the sound of familiar voices on Christmas Day. She could hear Kitty and Lydia's laughter, Mamma was giving orders to the staff, and even Colonel Richard Fitzwilliam's voice trailed from the room. When Lizzy entered the space, she was greeted by hugs and kind words. Mamma did ridicule her for soiling her dress and looking pale. "Come now, Lizzy has had quite an eventful night," said Mr. Bennet. "Let her rest before you harass her with questions and concerns." The bodies returned to their previous engagements, leaving Lizzy to quietly admire the scenery at the table. It was not the food and decorations that warmed her heart, but the sight of friends and family gathered together. This is what Christmas should be about, a time with loved ones. After the festive meal and a couple activities coordinated by Georgiana, Lizzy asked the hostess to show her to the library. She needed time away from constant noise and wanted to be surrounded by books. She also took this time to apologize to the young lady for yesterday's unplanned incident. "I'm afraid my fall has left me with no memories of your Christmas Eve dinner," said Lizzy. "Oh, do not let it bother you," returned Georgiana, "for I am so grateful we get to do it all over again today. 2 Christmases. And you are well. That is all I could ask for, my dear friend." The young hostess pulled a chair to the window and brought an array of books for her guest to enjoy. After draping a quilt over Liz's lap, Georgiana returned to the rest of the party. Alone and uninterrupted, Lizzy browsed through the selection and began reading Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. After some time, her peace and quiet was interrupted by Mr. Darcy. Her Mr. Darcy. It was strange, to Lizzy, how she previously worried about being a forever aunt, and now she may just be the future mistress of Pemberley. "Are you enjoying yourself?" Mr. Darcy approached her and knelt by Liz's side. "Yes, very much. I apologize for stealing away from all the activities Georgiana has planned. My head is still not fully recovered, and the many voices pain me a little. Then you should get as much rest as possible, as ordered by the doctor. As for Georgiana, thank you." Lizzy could only stare at Mr. Darcy, who continued to explain. "If it were not for you, serving as our first guest yesterday, I believe Georgiana would have hid in her room, with fear and anxiety, today. I have never seen her so bold and confident before. I believe your friendship has allowed her to grow and change." Lizzy smiled. "I am more than happy to be Georgiana's friend and your—" A blush occurred on her face, and Lizzy could not bring herself to say more. Mr. Darcy gave her hand a squeeze. "I have made my intentions known to your father. He approves of our courtship. I intend to marry you when you are fully healed. And I promise you, my Lizzy, that I will not let any harm come your way again." Lizzy laughed. "That is inevitable, sir, for you cannot know the future." "Indeed. The future is hard to see. However, my Lizzy, I foresee you in my future for many years to come." It was then that Lizzy recalled the woman in the bookshop, earlier in the month. It is easy to be blinded by our pain and stubbornness. However, should we allow a wall to be built, those dearest to us may be a loss forever. Could Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy be the person the older woman was referring to? Upon further thinking, Lizzy realized that had she not allowed herself to be civil with Mr. Darcy, perhaps she would not be here at this precise moment. She could be in Longbourn, engaged to Mr. Collins even. The worst would be dead, had Mr. Darcy not gone riding with her, as she'd been told by several of the staff. She was now celebrating Christmas with friends and family, in a beautiful home, and with a man she once deemed insufferable. All Lizzy wanted to do now was spend every waking moment with him to her beau. Lizzy turned to face Mr. Darcy and murmured, "Thank you for saving my life. I fear I have nothing to give you in exchange." Mr. Darcy pressed his lips to her hand. "My Lizzy, you have filled Pemberley with joy, given Georgiana a confidant, and agreed to let me court you. You have given me more than I could ever ask for, and most importantly you have made my Christmas wish come true. Have I now? You have. My wish was to find a woman worth my love and affection, and I have found her in you. Was not that Lady Catherine de Bourgh's Christmas wish? Lizzy recalled their earlier conversation. It was, and now it is mine, and it has been fulfilled. Liz's vision blurred with tears. She was speechless. Placing her book to the side, Lizzy stood with Mr. Darcy and wrapped him in an embrace. As he pressed a kiss to the top of her head, Lizzy considered this to be the best Christmas she's ever experienced. She hoped for many more days, such as this, in their future together as Mr. and Mrs. Darcy. Epilogue. January 11th, 1813. Fitzwilliam Darcy peered down the window to the gardens below. A light blanket of snow fell on whatever shrubbery and perennials that fought to survive the cold season here at Rosings Park. As he waited for his aunt, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Darcy wished it was spring already, so that he may see new growth around his own estate, Pemberley. And he could take walks around the property with Lizzy. As he began listing off activities that could be accomplished in warmer weather, the older woman came into the room. Darcy straightened and faced his aunt. "You are early," she grumbled. "Yes, madam. I prefer promptness over lateness." The older woman nodded and took her seat by the fire. "Do sit down." "I prefer to stand, I understand." His aunt waved her hand, having heard this from her nephew many times over. There was silence in the room, as neither knew who to speak first, and which topics they should touch upon. It was Darcy who broke the silence. "I see the pansies and violets are still in bloom this time of year." Lady Catherine nodded her head in agreement. Again, there was silence. Sensing that his aunt needed time to collect her thoughts, Darcy returned his gaze to the gardens. "Does she like flowers?" Lady Catherine asked at last. "Does who, dear aunt?" "The woman you are courting." Darcy smiled to himself. Word of his courtship with Elizabeth Bennet flew through England like wildfire. Darcy was unsure of who to blame, the younger Bennet sisters or his cousin Colonel Richard Fitzwilliam, yet he was grateful to not have had to carry this burden for too long. "I believe so," Darcy replied. "She is also fond of walking, and come the spring I plan to show her the grounds of Pemberley and get her advice on the layout." "You make it sound as if she is already mistress of Pemberley." Darcy sensed anger and jealousy from Lady Catherine, yet bother him it did not. Her behaviour only encouraged him to follow through with the words he had told Miss Elizabeth the week prior. "That is my intention," he spoke out loud. "I wish to court and wed Miss Elizabeth Bennet." Lady Catherine de Bourgh met him with narrow eyes. "And how do you know in 1 month's time that this woman will be suitable for Pemberley? This woman we speak of has been a friend of mine for many years. I know her character both in private and in public. She will make a fine mistress at Pemberley." Lady Catherine gazed into the hearth. "I suppose you have come here so that I may congratulate you," she said at last. "Not at all, for I came here upon your request." "Oh. Yes. The task I gave you at the start of December." Darcy had forgotten about the blackmail from Lady Catherine de Bourgh. He was to be engaged by Christmas or Georgiana's piano lessons at Rosings Park would be removed. Heat rose to Darcy's face at the memory of the threat. Today, however, that ultimatum held no leverage. "I have completed your task and will be withdrawing Georgiana from the master classes." Darcy kept his eyes on the gardens. Lady Catherine gasped. "Withdrawing?" "Yes." Darcy faced his aunt then. "She has accomplished a lot in her time here at Rosings Park, and I thank you for allowing her to learn. I should like for Georgiana to learn other skills needed of her at Pemberley and when she becomes mistress of her own home." At that, his aunt's jaw tightened, but she replied, "Very well. I accept your wish to withdraw Georgiana. However, before you leave, I have one more request to make." Darcy could not understand how anything his aunt has ever asked for would be considered a request. Still, he asked her what it was she needed. "Find a suitor for my Anne." Lady Catherine de Bourgh began listing the criteria needed for such a suitor. And does this particular search also come with a deadline? Darcy inquired. His aunt eyed him. Of course not, Darcy. Love takes time. I did not meet and marry my late husband in a fortnight. How Darcy wished his aunt listened to her own words and advice. The older woman had rushed him into finding a woman by Christmas, yet she wanted time to be on her daughter's side. Darcy only shook his head, for he could not argue with his aunt. If it were not for her, Darcy would not be courting Miss Elizabeth, he would not be looking forward to a future with her. Darcy only nodded. Very well, I will do my best to find a man suitable for Anne. He could not comprehend which man would charge himself with being a delicate woman's husband, yet love is curious. Just last year Darcy never dreamed he'd be courting a strong-willed woman such as Elizabeth Bennet, yet he was. Darcy had to conclude, his aunt was correct. Love takes time. That he knew very well indeed. The end. Thank you for listening to Mr. Darcy's Christmas Wish, a Pride and Prejudice variation, written by Lysa Shimkus. Subscribe for more love everlasting tales.